It is 10:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Titans quarterback Will Levis joined 3HL in studio on Thursday and talked about his fit in Brian Callahan's new Titans offense.
Yes, I think that it fits me very, very well in terms of the types of concepts off of the play action stuff, especially, and my ability to kind of come off of that fake and have a nice protection, hopefully, and being able to read everything top down or whatever it is and just have a nice clear vision. So it's a lot of concepts, a lot of actions, a lot of protections that I've already ran and that I'm familiar with. And, I'd say that in my last few years of playing, that was probably my best year. And it'll be fun to see if I can, top that.
You can watch that entire interview now on 104.5 The Zone's YouTube page or go back and listen to the 3HL podcast. In NFL news, the Patriots and running back Ramondre Stevenson have agreed to terms on a 4-year extension for $36 million, $17 million in guaranteed money. Stevenson was a 1,000-yard rusher in 2022 and rushed for over 600 yards in 12 games in 2023. The LA Lakers are reportedly hiring JJREK to be the next head coach on a 4-year contract. Redick's playing career ended in 2021. He has been in broadcasting since. This will be Redick's first coaching job. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Happy Friday. You made it. Congratulations to all involved. Morale is through the roof. Now, I don't know how Jackson's morale is because Jackson, famously a Lakers fan. Famously a LeBron fan, but he's got a new head coach in JJREK, as you just heard Lucas say. LeBron reportedly having no involvement in the hiring of JJREK, not a single solitary soul anywhere. Not even LeBron James believes that he did not have any involvement in the hiring of JJREK to be the next Lakers head coach.
How could we connect those dots?
Yeah, what are you talking about, Buck?
Well, it's just funny because you see Woj breaking down the news, and then immediately there's a screenshot from JJREK's podcast with LeBron James where they're drinking wine and having basketball conversations and saying, "Oh, wouldn't it be nice to, to be able to carry this over in some form or fashion? Oh, wait, why don't you be my next head coach?"
Well, LeBron does have the opportunity to be a free agent, and he has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever.
Ooh. I'd go take Bronny somewhere else.
Ooh, I think you've just found my Friday fire. That's excellent. We'll save that for later on in the show. Coach Dave McGinnis will join us at 11:20, as is the custom on a Friday. But yes, JJREK is going to be the next head coach of the Lakers. That's the biggest story in sports today. So, 15 years in the league, one of the most hated Duke players, which is saying something, given how many hateable Duke players have come through that program and gone on to be hateable NBA players. And JJREK is probably is JJREK a hateable media personality?
I don't think so.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think he's a fantastic media personality.
He's an excellent analyst, but I don't know what the reaction to him on things like First Take are when it's, designed to kind of pivot or put people against one another. Either way.
Cookeville, Tennessee's own JJREK.
JJREK, how about that? I did not know JJREK was from Cookeville.
He went to high school in Virginia, but born in Cookeville.
That's crazy. So, apparently, Redick was offered the job yesterday morning, even though Shams Charania of The Athletic has been reporting that the Lakers were interested in JJREK for the better part of 2 weeks. They go through the whole Dan Hurley cycle, and they get pantsed, right? They get embarrassed, the Los Angeles Lakers do, by offering one of the most famous and best basketball minds, college or pro in the game right now, the opportunity to be their next head coach. And he looked around and said, no, I'd rather go back to UConn and try and win 3 straight, which he's probably best equipped to do. He's going to win more as the UConn coach than he would as a Lakers coach. But still, it's a huge embarrassment, a huge black mark for the franchise to have that, or black eye for the franchise to just get turned down that way. And so now they go back to JJREK, who's never been a coach before. And it brings up the question, since we're talking about, and coaching in the NFL is different than coaching in the NBA, is different than coaching in the MLS or the MLB, or whatever your major sport is. But the value of a coach in today's game, in professional sports, what value do we place on a head coach? Here in Tennessee, it's being treated like it's the second coming of football Jesus Christ. Like it's crazy how much a guy from the Bengals is going to completely revolutionize everything that the Titans do offensively, or at least according to the fan base, to hear them tell it. That's a lot of importance that you're assigning to a coach who's a part of a larger operation that is essential to making the thing go, especially when you consider the level of value that the head coach, also being the offensive play caller, brings to the table. So one would say that there is a greater level of value assigned to the next head coach of the Tennessee Titans right now than people might look at JJREK and say, well, how important is it actually that JJREK's the head coach of the Lakers if it's really just LeBron's team to run?
People have been questioning the value of a head coach in the NBA for years and years now.
Sure.
And I feel like the NBA only continues to give us more reasons to do that. Like, what else are we supposed to do when the most famous, most accomplished brand of basketball on the planet has hired someone who doesn't have an inkling of coaching experience, that has never even led a locker room of high schoolers,
sure,
of
even Jeff Saturday has more coaching experience, had more coaching experience before his first shot at being a head coach than JJREK does taking the Lakers job.
Remember the Josh McCown stuff with the Houston Texans?
Oh my God, he just got his first coaching job here recently, right? No, actually, he's been on a staff.
Wasn't he on the Panther staff?
Yeah, I think he's been on the Panther staff. So he's been, but either way, they were talking about
he's the QB coach of the Vikings at the moment.
And I think he was most recently with Carolina.
He was their QB coach last year.
So my point is, it's not a blanket statement across all of the major professional sports that the coach is not that important. But, I mean, how many baseball managers do you think are absolutely critical to what it is that they do on a regular basis? Absolutely critical. With 162 games, how important on the day-to-day is the baseball manager?
Critical. Football, critical. From the top down, right? Yes. Head coach, coordinators, assistant coaches, all critical to a team's success.
Coaches are most important in football because of all the different levels of things that have to be on the same page to get this thing even close to operating well.
Yeah, and just the amount of people that need to be managed, right? And how it's compartmentalized with offense and defense and different position groups and so on. Like position coaches have assistants and so on. So is the NBA doing anything to prevent us from devaluing a head coach in the league?
No, this is the biggest and having respect for JJREK as a player and as an analyst, and as a person, I say this meaning no disrespect to him personally, but this is the biggest devaluation of a head coach that the NBA has had. When you just hire, I don't want to say just a guy, because he's not just a guy. He's a 15-year NBA veteran. That counts for something, absolutely. But with zero coaching experience, you are saying, yeah, I mean, okay, whatever. We'll make him the head coach of our most famous franchise with our most famous player, who's still the face of the league until he's not at, whatever age he decides to retire. LeBron James at this point. LeBron going to be 39 or 40 this year?
Jackson, noted LeBron James fan. What say you? What is LeBron's birthday?
LeBron's birthday is my birthday. That's why I'm a LeBron fan.
Is that really 30th. The genesis?
No.
That's where it came from.
Because you share a birthday?
Yeah, I told you this. Me and you've had this conversation.
Yeah, but I don't listen to the things that you say to me.
I share a birthday.
You'll be 40 this year.
I share a birthday with John Heater. I don't have Napoleon Dynamite posters in my bedroom.
I don't have a LeBron poster in my bedroom. I just like LeBron.
No, actually, I like the idea of Jackson having a LeBron. Jackson at age, how old are you, 25?
24.
24 at age 24, having a full-size LeBron James poster in his bedroom. That makes me happy.
It's him on the Cavs.
But like, this has never happened, right? In the NBA.
Oh, nothing to this degree. Nothing. Not somebody with zero coaching experience.
Well, did Jason Kidd have any? Steve Nash had no coaching experience when he was hired by the Nets. Jason Kidd, I don't think, had any coaching experience when he was hired by the Nets. Something about the Nets and just coaching play.
Well, the Nets just trading every player and every asset they have for washed rosters on a regular basis and not having any experience with the coaches is, clearly a theme.
So Jason Kidd retired June 3rd, 2013, and he was named the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets June 12th, 2013. So there is some precedent here.
Yeah.
But literally a few days after retiring as a player, he's named the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. Steve Nash named the coach of the Nets a few years after retiring as a player without any prior coaching experience. So, okay, maybe it's not
some
unprecedented.
Degree of precedence.
Yes, but for a brand like the Lakers, it's still jarring.
The Nets don't mean anything. What are the Nets? I still think of them as the New Jersey Nets half the time. Honestly, like the Brooklyn Nets have they ever mattered in our basketball lives in a meaningful way other than all of the Celtics players after they won the title going to the Brooklyn Nets? Who was the Russian owner at the time? It started with a P. I can't remember his name. Dude was insane and then just completely ransacked the franchise with how bad that trade was. And then immediately they did something similar with James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, which in theory should have been so much better. I think most of us put the fault on the players for underachieving there as opposed to the management who traded for a bunch of past their prime superstars when the Brooklyn Nets did that deal. But when have the Nets ever mattered in our basketball lifetimes?
Oh, early 2000s, I think. They made a couple NBA finals. Didn't the Spurs beat the Nets in the finals 1 or 2 years? I don't know. But yes, largely you are correct.
So, point being, I always think it's interesting to just kind of take a step back and talk about coaches and their level of impact. Because you could have this conversation around Jim Harbaugh kind of too, right? After the amount, he missed, 6 games for Michigan this year? En route to going undefeated? Sharon Moore, who takes over as the head coach now in Michigan, was the interim head coach. Was he the OC?
Sharon Moore?
Yes. So Sharon Moore takes over. Point being that the program operated at a high enough level without Jim Harbaugh that they were able to continue, and they weren't playing that high level of competition that often without Jim Harbaugh. In the 6 games that he missed, how many times? It wasn't high-level Big Ten opponents that they were running over.
Oh, God, no.
They was lopsided.
Yeah, they really didn't run into anybody worth anything until Ohio State.
So I'm always
which Harbaugh was not on the sideline for.
I'm always curious. Yeah, right. I'm always curious to see how much value fans assign to coaches. Because especially here, for as much as we're getting ready to talk about Callahan and talk about Levis and talk about how important Callahan is, and I think you can assign that level of importance and value to a head coach, especially one that's got control of your offense.
Where does it matter most? Maybe that's the discussion for another day.
Well, we can have that discussion. Oh, well, we can have a version of that discussion coming up next. We can also talk about the least talked about Titans player of the offseason. We've buried you in Traylon Burks talk, but who haven't we put enough shine on in the last couple of months? We will get into that coming up next. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. You can jump in at any point if you want to engage on the internet. If you're brave that way, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is where you can interact in the comment section. So we talked about coaching and the value of coaches on the news that JJREK is being hired by the Lakers with zero coaching experience. He's got a 4-year deal to be the head coach of a very famous franchise in the NBA. And LeBron James is still the face of the NBA, right?
Yes.
Is it going to take LeBron just retiring? Like, he's never going to be in the NBA and not be the face of the league.
We keep trying to have these conversations like...
I don't keep trying to have these conversations.
It feels like...
I would love for Anthony Edwards or John Morant to do something that makes me have to think about somebody other than LeBron.
That was a big topic, right, at the Western Conference Finals. Whoever emerges from this series is the new face... No, it's LeBron.
Yeah, unless you wanted to be Luka crying in front of refs trying to get calls and stuff like that. So, the value of coaches. This in particular, Lucas brought up the idea of where is it most important to have a coach that's a plus on the bench, on the sideline, on, wherever, where the manager in the dugout. Where is it most important to have the head coach be because we're talking about in-game benefit, right? Not the whole job.
Oh, no, the whole job.
The whole job.
Building the team,
okay.
Locker room, managing players, in-game management, all of it, yes, all of
it. Tony on YouTube says LeBron is not the face of the NBA. I'm dying to hear who he suggests is a bigger face or more representative of the NBA than LeBron James right now. But anyway, so top to bottom. Now, this depends. And I don't mean to throw additional caveats in there, but like, you remember Stan Van Gundy? He does games for TNT now. He was a coach for a long time. Orlando Magic, Miami Heat. Most recently, I want to say Detroit Pistons. In Detroit, Stan Van Gundy was basically the head coach and GM. Doc Rivers had some of this. Not with the Milwaukee Bucks, but I want to say with the Clippers, where Doc was the head coach and president of basketball operations. So we had personnel control. Mike Vrabel, famously, personnel control, big sticking point. Why? A big part of the reason, not exclusively the reason, but a big part of the reason he's not here anymore is because he was trying to get something that not a lot of coaches in the NFL have. So are we, for the purpose of this exercise, are we just leaving it to coaches and what the traditional role of a coach is? Not the Bill Belichick's of the world who had top to bottom control over everything. Because who else is an example of that? Shanahan? Shanahan's really the only one, the most prominent one.
Well, and this whole discussion is why my answer is being a college football head coach.
Okay.
Because that is a blanket thing. Roster control. You are the GM of your program. If you are a Power 4 head coach in college football, you are the general manager. And I know teams are doing this now where they're hiring GMs. Barton Simmons, right, over with Vanderbilt football.
Well, they have to, right? Because by the rules, the GM of a college football program cannot be a part of the coaching staff.
Exactly. But the coach is the GM. Yeah. The coach has the roster control. The coach decides who he wants on his football team, how he wants to manage his locker room, telling players whether or not they should hit the portal, deciding which players to go after in the portal.
Dion, I'm bringing my luggage and it's Louis. Get out of here.
There is not a laundry list of things to do longer than that of a college football head coach. I think it is the hardest job in coaching as well, with the hours it demands and the current state of college athletics and the way that it's in flux. So to me, the answer is college football. That's where it's most important, because we've seen what Nick Saban did, mastering that sport from top to bottom and the way he dominated it for 15 years at Alabama. To be the best as a head coach in college football, to me, is the hardest thing to do, and it's why you see, I think, those coaches dominate for long spells of time.
Sure, because they have the most control. Is it dominate? So when you say dominate, you mean just in terms of like how long they can last? Because there's still a tremendous amount or a high rate of turnover at the head coaching level in, let's say, I would argue even Power 4 college football, other than the primary actors, the Kirby Smarts, the Nick Sabans, and, up until recently, obviously the people who have the most firm grasp at the best institutions are the ones that last the longest for obvious reasons. Because, think about, because we'll have a version of this conversation later with Levis. Will Levis had how many offensive coordinators across his college career?
Oh.
The answer is 4.
4, yeah.
4.
One for every year,
One
basically.
for every year, because he was 2 years at Penn State. They had 2 different offensive coordinators. 2 years at Kentucky, where he was the primary starter, and they had 2 offensive coordinators in his time there. What happens when you have success, when your quarterback is good? A lot of times, your coaching staff gets hired away by other people to be a head coach, to be, an offensive coordinator at a bigger program, whatever. So you're fighting off a level of turnover there at the top end of things that make it even more impressive how Kirby Smart and Nick Saban sustained. I think that for college football coaches, it is, it's why somebody like Vrabel and, Blaine brought this up a lot. Is Blaine back on today? Blaine back from?
Yes.
Okay. So Blaine Bishop 1 to 3 today. Blaine talked about the idea of Mike having a lot of college to him, a lot of college vibes to him. Well, what's more college, coach, than wanting as much control over your situation as humanly possible, because it allows you to do the thing, to work towards whatever long-term goal you have in your head besides just the immediate, just the next football game, just the upcoming Sunday. So I do think that's an interesting kind of comparison to look at. I would agree with you. There's no, the argument would then be for college coaches over pro coaches, because college coaches are going to have more control over their respective programs than a head coach of an NFL team or an NBA team over their franchise.
And just more obstacles to being good, right? Dealing with players that keep coming back for more NIL money and more NIL money when there is no set structure for that, the ever-changing landscape of it, the nonstop nature of the calendar, and the way that is just, it seems in chaos year after year. I will say, though, sustaining in the NFL probably is harder, just with the way the NFL is set up for parity and with the draft and the salary cap. It is hard to sustain the way Bill Belichick did in New England, the way Andy Reid has in Kansas City, unless you have an elite Hall of Fame quarterback.
Well, you've just cracked the case, right? Because those two have sustained success. You talk about, we talked about this maybe earlier this week, maybe last week, the idea that the NFL is the most rigid about trying to make sure that the sport is on a level playing field, like that there's as close to even for all the teams, all 32 teams, as humanly possible. And then what happens? The Patriots win for 20 straight years, basically, even though they're not, they have damn near a decade between those two, that first 3-ring stretch and the second 3-ring stretch with Brady, right? There's almost 10 years that pass between that, where Roethlisberger and Joe Flacco has a title in there, and Peyton Manning has a title in there, Drew Brees. But still, the one thing that supersedes everything is the quarterback in that situation, because Mahomes is getting ready to do something, if not on par with Brady, because Brady's the greatest to ever do it, seems pretty equipped to do it pretty close to what Brady was able to accomplish. He's already halfway there.
Chris on the F&M Bank chat says, in pro sports, NHL head coach has the most impact on a team.
So that's probably the place where I'm the most ignorant on the level of impact that an NHL coach has on his team. So it's 82 games. So you're obviously dealing with lineup changes and shifting personnel on a night in, night out basis. But the level of roster control, how would an NHL coach, and maybe we don't have the answer to this question as a show, maybe we need to text Lindsay Rowley during the break or something like that. Top to bottom, how much more can an NHL coach influence things than, say, an NFL coach? I don't have the answer to that question. I'm not familiar with the workings of an NHL organization that way.
I think every dynamic is going to be unique, but in terms of the in-game stuff, to me, that's more what Chris is talking about, and the volatility of an NHL game and determining lineups, lines, and shifts, and all of the moving parts in a hockey game. Whereas in football, you can have a chess match, right, between an elite offensive coordinator and an elite defensive coordinator, and head coaches can make such a difference in game situations, when to use timeouts, and all of those things. But at the end of the day, if your offensive line is bullying their defensive line and your receivers are better than their defensive backs,
you're going to win.
Oftentimes, doesn't really matter what the play call is. Your football players are better than their football players. Jimmy's and Joe's, you're going to win the game. So in terms of in-game chess match, that maybe is even a more interesting discussion when it comes to where the head coach is most important. And that's where I think it gets interesting in college basketball.
Yeah.
It gets interesting in the NHL.
That's the biggest criticism of Cal.
Absolutely.
Is his, that he is an elite recruiter, but when it comes to being a plus from the bench, he's not necessarily that, or not among the best. He is one of the best coaches in college basketball. Let me not throw dirt on Cal's name because he's obviously accomplished at a very high level. But still, when you talk about, do you think of Dan Hurley schematically the same way that you do Cal? Probably not.
No, my God, no.
Right? So where Hurley's talking about, well, the system that we run is pretty unique, and actually Bronny James could work really well in the system based on the way that we, going through basically all the different things that make his game planning in basketball different, where you don't really hear that from Cal, because Cal's a used car salesman. He's there for the pitch, and he's excellent at the pitch. Excellent at the pitch. But, the idea of hockey, that one's an interesting conversation to me, because I'll hear you on in game, they may be able to impact their situation the most. But do they really have that much control when the nature of hockey makes it our most random sport? Hockey is the most random sport that we have, right? Of the pro sports, there's not a more random sport than hockey, for the bounces, for the puck, for, just weird angles and sticks breaking and all kinds of different things that can happen throughout the course of a hockey game. Hockey is the thing that's most subject to chaos. I have this whole what's Jeff Goldblum's character's name in Jurassic Park?
Oh,
Grace hadn't seen Jurassic Park ever. So we didn't get through the whole thing last night, but we started to watch it. And I can't remember, but I have the whole chaos theory roaming around in my head because we watched Jurassic Park last night.
Man, sometimes you'll just be with someone that tells you something like that, like a movie that they've never seen that just shocks you. That is stunning to me. I don't know if I know anybody that's never seen. Jackson, you've seen Jurassic Park.
Yes, and the Jeff Goldblum's character's name is Ian Malcolm.
Ian Malcolm. So yeah, I've got the Ian Malcolm chaos theory with the water droplet. He's running down the back of her fist and all that kind of stuff to describe the chaos theory. That's kind of how I think of hockey, is just the ultimate, anything that can happen will happen in the course of a hockey game. So I almost feel like when you assign that level of randomness, you take that away from the coach, because how much can the coach really do?
Yeah.
You can, all best laid plans,
yes,
right?
A lot of it is in terms of setting the table, which is where soccer comes in for me in terms of a chess match on setting the table with tactics and putting players in a position to succeed, where apart from the substitutions that you can make, it's hard to make those in-game changes from a soccer touchline. And those substitutions can have a massive impact and can change the outcome of a game tactically. But it's just really interesting how every sport differs in that way, in terms of what's more of a chess match on the field. Where does the personnel on the field matter more than other sports? Where does the locker room control and just setting the tone and identity of a team matter? I think hockey it's critical in hockey, just in terms of the mentality, the leadership qualities you have to have as a head coach in the NHL for players to want to go to battle for. Same with football. So, and in every sport to an extent, but it's an interesting thought.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to join the conversation. We're talking about the level of impact that a coach can have on their respective sports on the heels of the news that JJREK, with no coaching experience, is going to be hired as the next head coach on a 4-year deal of the Los Angeles Lakers. We'll also get to some of your comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch here in just a second. A quick reminder that Ramon, Kayla, and Will are going to have their first ever Arcade W event at Game Terminal on Wednesday, June the 26th. That's next Wednesday, right? Next Wednesday. The event is free to attend. Always exciting to have free events to attend. And we will be broadcasting live from 1 to 6. So Blaine and then we'll start it off, and 3HL after that, with gameplay starting at 3 p.m. Listen to RKW each weekday morning for a chance to win VIP passes that include free food and gameplay, a goodie bag with free drink tickets, and more from us and Game Terminal. Plus, you can challenge our staff to pinball and classic arcade games such as Mortal Kombat, NBA Jam, Mario Kart, NFL Blitz, for a chance to win prizes. It's RKW on June the 26th at Game Terminal, Nashville's largest arcade with over 250 games spanning 40 years. For more details, visit 1045thezone.com/events today.
Bo on the F&M Bank chat says, it's football and it's not close. Scheme and where a player goes matters so much to their success. Coaches call every play in the NBA. It's so much player focus. So Bo says football is where the head coach matters most, and it's not close.
I like G. Sully's comment on YouTube too, where he says of hockey, random is a bad word for it, talking about the the word that I use to describe in-game play. He says it has the most variables, but every team has a certain style of forecheck, offense, neutral zone traps, and the coach will adjust multiple times per game. And that's why I think, at least for me, hockey, because I couldn't possibly begin to tell that in game while watching a hockey game. Like you can hear an analyst like Chris Mason when he's on the call for Bally Sports, and he explains to you after the fact what's happened, what adjustments the coach has made and things like that. Like I can kind of discern what's going on there, but the pieces are moving so fast that it's really, really hard, I think, for your average fan to kind of identify those schematics in real time. Football, I think it's the easiest to assign that level of importance because there's so much time between every play. I mean, football's the second. Is football the slowest sport right now after baseball put the pitch clock in?
In terms of game length?
Probably.
Like from kickoff
it's not
to the end of the game?
Football, but I think the NFL, with the adjustments that they've made to Major League Baseball, and you'll have, the odd extra innings game here and there that goes longer than average, but I think they've gotten baseball under 3 hours.
I wonder what is the average. Okay, as of May 2nd, 2024, the average length of a 9-inning Major League Baseball game, 2 hours and 36 minutes, down 1 minute from 2023.
Okay.
Which was the first year the pitch clock was introduced.
I'd be curious to know what it was from 22 to 23 without the pitch clock. But, the NFL, there's at any given point, like 8 minutes of actual action throughout the course of a 60-minute NFL game?
In 2022, it was just over 3 hours.
That's a huge drop. Huge drop.
Yeah, this is according to Statista.com. The average has largely been right at around 3 hours until the pitch clock was brought in.
Jacob Ray says, stop trying to speed up games. Baseball games are too quick to attend now. Going to get food can take a couple of innings. That's an interesting.
Yeah, I hear that.
That's an interesting comment.
But that's me as somebody that struggles to consistently watch baseball on television unless I have an investment, right?
It's not about the people attending the games. It's about trying to make it a more watchable product on television.
Because when I'm watching, I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is going 4 hours. But when I'm at a baseball game, I'm like, I want this thing to go 4.5 hours because I'm having a good time. Yeah, and I don't want to go home.
Because it's summertime. The weather's probably nice. You're probably having a couple of cocktails. If you're at a Sounds game, you're out there in the bandbox. There's music. There's putt-putt. There's all kinds of fun stuff to keep your attention. And then every once in a while, you'll have a player on an injury designation or somebody like that that's coming at least through the minors. When's the last time you just went to an MLB game? You just went to a Tigers game?
I went to the Tigers losing to the Brewers a couple weekends ago.
Eric making some comments on YouTube. Hell, I'm more likely to watch golf or tennis than baseball. Baseball is so boring. But that's what they're trying to accomplish. If your product is going to have the amount of time, it's fine for an in-game experience. I've always enjoyed the in-game experience of a baseball game because you don't have to really be that into the baseball game to have fun at a live baseball game. And then, if something happens, you're a part of it and it's a fun experience or whatever. Television's different, and they have to find a way to keep pace with the rest of the major leagues as far as being a television product because they have to make their product viable. If you want to talk about the NFL and the bubble that never seems like it's going to pop with the way that the contracts keep going up, and we haven't even talked about real money with the streamers yet. Like whatever point, we talked about the idea of an 18-game regular season schedule by the time the Titans open play in 2027 or scheduled to open play in 2027. Would you put the over-under 3 years for a league having their primary broadcast partner be a streamer? I'd probably put over 3. Probably put over 3 for that kind of a shift, but I don't think we're that far away where the money starts to really change. And Major League Baseball has to have a piece of that to be sustainable. And the only thing that they're fighting against is the fact that, everybody wants the NFL's product, and Major League Baseball has 162 of these things to shelve somewhere. Because that's the biggest issue for baseball people, right? With the argument that I hear the most, not that I get into a lot of baseball arguments in my life, but that you can't shorten the baseball season, that the baseball's biggest issue is 162 games. Just the sheer volume that you have. That's the thing that makes it feel like it drags on for the way that it does. You don't have to care about games even June. You've got plenty of time to check in on baseball. But you can't shorten the regular season because of how it'll impact the record books. And that's an argument that I legitimately understand. I don't think you should just erase the history, because you're trying to streamline the product, but you have to find a way to streamline the product, and that is the reason that the pitch clock is so important for Major League Baseball. Anyway,
Speaking of baseball, SEC stat of the day, we preview Tennessee Texas A&M National Championship Series this weekend, and there is some coaching news in the world of the SEC on the football side.
that's next.
The Vols are playing for a national championship this weekend. Oh, it still just feels weird to say. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm excited. I have butterflies in my stomach.
Is this the first national championship in any sport they've played in your...
No. Well, I remember the Pat Summitt national titles of 2007, 2008 very well.
Okay.
Candace Parker teams. Those teams were awesome. But it is the first major men's sport to compete for a national title since 98. When I was a toddler.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, like, your adult life, though, like, how old were you in 2008?
I was in middle school.
That's what I'm saying.
When
like,
Pat Summitt
this is the first time that, like, real human being Lucas Panzica has the opportunity to appreciate one of his teams
Yes.
in a national championship, well, in this case, series, but yeah.
Yes, and
look at you.
There has not been a Tennessee program.
I'm so jealous.
The same obviously goes for Jackson as well. There has not been a program even remotely close to competing for a national title, other than the baseball team getting to Omaha a couple times in the last few years, and the softball team, to their credit, getting to the Women's College World Series, just haven't broken through under Karen Weekly. But yes, Tennessee is playing for a national title this weekend. You can hear every game right here on 104.5 The Zone. Vault Network coverage starts at 6:15 Saturday for a 6:30 first pitch in the best-of-3 series between Tennessee and Texas A&M. Now, Tennessee has seen A&M once this season. It was a win in the losers bracket of the SEC tournament in Hoover. That was Tennessee's bounce back from the Vanderbilt loss that they opened the SEC tournament with. Obviously, they went on to sweep the rest of the field and win the SEC tournament this year. The SEC stat of the day, though, wow, I feel like I should just turn my mic off and go home. Jackson, you want to do the SEC stat of the day?
Doe.
That's wooey embarrassing. A&M and their pitching staff against what has been the best offense, the best lineup in the country.
Just the way that came to a screeching halt
in college baseball. So, A&M ranks fourth.
Somebody said, okay, Homer.
Ranks fourth in the country in ERA as a pitching staff. 3.86 is the A&M ERA as a pitching staff. 50 strikeouts per 9 innings pitched. Strikeouts per 9 innings pitched. 50 would be insane. 10.8. That ranks 8th in the country. We expect left-handed pitcher Ryan Prager to start. He is essentially the only weekend starter that Texas A&M has left with the injuries that have been sustained along their pitching staff. He's the only bona fide weekend starter. And Tennessee's already seen him once. They saw him in that affair in the SEC tournament. He pitched 2.1 innings, allowed 3 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. Really held up well until early in the 3rd inning where the bases got loaded. A sac fly, scored a run with Christian Moore, and then they pulled Ryan Prager. Tennessee went on to win. So they've seen Prager once. We expect Chris Stamos to start for Tennessee. Essentially, you're back to a regular weekend rotation. Stamos, Drew Beam, and then Xander Sechrest. But, of course, Stamos expects to be pulled after 1-2 innings with A.J. Causey coming in. Think of it as a reliever, but in reverse. Stamos starts the game. A.J. Causey comes in. The longer Stamos can stay in the game, the better for A.J. Causey and his chance to potentially finish it out. I'm curious to see how Tennessee kind of handles itself in terms of the infield and the defense that they've played throughout the course of the College World Series, which struggled early, especially against Florida State. That's where the BVS really crept in early in that game, when you're getting blunders, overthrows, defensive miscues that Tennessee hasn't been perfect with all season long, but they really corrected for the majority of the postseason until that FSU game, especially that 3rd or 4th inning when FSU scored 4 or 5 runs, whatever it was. Tennessee had 3 errors in that game against FSU. They righted the ship with none against UNC. They had 2 in the second meeting against Florida State, and those largely corrected themselves. The ball bouncing certain ways, Tennessee was able to get out of those situations. So, Tennessee defensively avoiding those mistakes against a very good Texas A&M lineup, and how the Vols handle themselves offensively, where they are red hot, peaking at the right time, as they say, against the lefty Ryan Prager, who they have already seen.
Well, that was going to be not my counter, but my kind of question. So let's say that they have a lesser performance in the infield. Their lineup is the thing that you can lean on. That, and it's not just the lineup in general, But we talked to Blake Burke yesterday. You can check out that interview. I think it's on the YouTube channel, Jackson.
It is on YouTube.
You can check out the Blake Burke interview on 104.5 The Zone's YouTube channel. You can subscribe to the channel while you're there. You can find things like 3HL's Full Hour with quarterback Will Levis and all the other interviews that we do throughout the course of the day and weeks with all 4 shows. But anyway, Christian Moore and Blake Burke are just shelling the pitching in this College World Series. You brought up or you thought that Christian Moore was 7 of 12, or something like that in the College World Series so far. Not quite, but combined, the two of them, or excuse me, each of them, rather, not combined, but each of them are 7 for 14 through the first 3 games, according to our buddy Mike Wilson at Knoxville News Sentinel.
Batting 500.
Batting 500 through 3 games and have combined for 11 runs, 8 RBIs at the top of Tennessee's lineup. So if, for whatever reason, they're not as sharp as they need to be in the infield, you feel like you have some margin for error, some house money, right? Even though you're the number 1 seed, because you've got that lineup to lean on. Now, this would be a terrible time for a competent pitching staff to catch up with you, and I don't think that we envision, of all the ways that you would talk about the Vols losing, if we came back in here on Monday, and God forbid, they go 0-2, and we have a disaster scenario, BVS at an all-time high after a situation like that. If that happens, it will only be because they weren't hitting at the rate that they've been hitting. Because otherwise, I can't figure out a discernible way that this team would at least not play 3 games in the College World Series.
Yeah, I mean, think about the way things fell apart defensively against FSU, and you still were able to come back and win that game, putting up 12 runs. You're right. If the offense is at this level through the course of the weekend,
but not even at this level. Like that, hitting 500 is ridiculous.
It's crazy.
But like even just close to where
even
they've
close
been.
to it, it's hard to imagine that they don't win, especially with what has been a depleted starting pitching staff for Texas A&M. Again, Ryan Prager, the only bona fide weekend starter left. They've got some arms in the bullpen, but unlike Tennessee, right, A.J. Russell closed down for the year with Tommy John surgery. Vols are missing their share of guys as well. But I agree with you. If Tennessee's offense carries into the weekend, then it's hard to imagine them not rolling this into a national title against Texas A&M, which has also been one of the best teams in college baseball all season. There is some news on the football side. Pete Thamel of ESPN reporting that Oklahoma has agreed to a new 6-year contract for head coach Brent Venables. He says the new 6-year deal includes a significant raise for Venables, but we do not have the details yet. And according to Thamel, he says there has been an uptick in overall program commitment as OU heads to the SEC. Venables 16-10 in the last 2 seasons. They are coming off a 10-3 season last year, and a lot of excitement about 5-star quarterback Jackson Arnold taking the reins in 2024.
That would have been good to talk about coming up next.
What we got?
QC Kinetics is here to help you if you are dealing with nagging joint pain. There is no better resource for you that is non-surgical than QC Kinetics. They have been helping thousands of patients achieve that goal because it's the best time for being outdoors and you don't want to have to suffer any longer. Non-surgical joint pain relief is here with QC Kinetics, so you should call them today because they're the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. Lasting joint pain relief with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. QC Kinetics advanced treatments harness your own body's ability to restore and repair damaged joint tissue so you can walk, run, hike, play golf, and move again pain-free. Their advanced protocols have enabled tens of thousands of patients to reclaim their mobility. So stop putting it off and take action now. Live your best life again with QC Kinetics. The number 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024. So many people trust Two Rivers Ford. Football players, working moms, business owners. Why? Because Two Rivers Ford has been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
It is 11:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Titans quarterback Will Levis joined 3HL in studio on Thursday, and he talked about what fans can expect from Brian Callahan's new Titans offense. You can watch that entire interview now on 104.5 The Zone's YouTube page or go back and listen to the 3HL podcast. The Los Angeles Lakers are reportedly hiring JJREK to be the next head coach on a 4-year contract. Redick's playing career ended in 2021. He has been in broadcasting since. This will be his first coaching job. The National Championship Series in Omaha starts this weekend. Tennessee taking on Texas A&M in a 3-game series starting Saturday night at 6:30. Chris Stamos expected to start on the bump for the Vols. You can hear the Vol Network coverage all weekend long here on The Zone. Coverage starts at 6:15 tomorrow. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 is off and rolling. Happy Friday. Thanks for hanging out here with us. We have soccer on the television, which means that I've lost Lucas for the remainder of the show. He is engrossed in a match that is 35 seconds and counting in between Poland and Austria today. Which European nation are you rooting for their downfall this time after you prayed for bad things to happen to the English national team?
No rooting interest in this one. No, I will not be necessarily locked into every minute of Poland-Austria. It's just nice to have up. Euros only come around once every 4 years.
No, anytime we can have live sports on while we're doing the show, it's a good time, whether it's baseball, March Madness, or the Euros. When does Copa America start?
It started last night. Okay. Argentina beating Canada 2-0 last night. Canada putting out a good effort. Jacob Schaffelberg, Nashville SC winger, came off the bench for the last 30 minutes, was a threat coming down the right wing. U.S. starts its campaign Sunday night against Bolivia.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio will be with us in about 15 minutes from now. We'll talk to Coach Mack about things like the quarterback salary cap. I don't know if Mack had seen that yesterday or heard it. Perhaps Jackson will have that audio from Tom Pelissero ready to play for Mack when he's on, talking about owners having discussions around capping quarterback contracts at a percentage of a team's salary cap every year, which would give them some kind of way to manage the ridiculous amounts of money that quarterbacks stand to make, where Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, probably going to be $60 million a year. The idea, so Daniel Jones, I didn't realize that Daniel Jones' contract was for less than $50 million just an offseason ago. And that we jumped from about $40 million, and I know Daniel Jones is not like cream of the crop, not a $50 million player anyway, even among, the quarterbacks who are getting paid. But Daniel Jones getting like ballpark 40 an offseason ago to Trevor Lawrence getting 55. And I know that the salary cap took an unprecedented jump this year in the NFL, which is why I think the next conversation that we're getting ready to have is worth having about the Cowboys, because we're taking a look at all the different teams in the NFL. Cowboys not on the Titans schedule this year, but when we talk about quarterback contracts, Dallas is going to have a big portion of the conversation. Before we do that, though, you had an interesting headline right before the break about Brent Venables getting a contract extension.
Yeah, Pete Thamel reporting that he is getting an extension and it comes with a significant raise. He has not reported the exact figures of the raise, but he does say there's been an uptick in overall program commitment as OU heads to the SEC, coming off a 10-3 season. Oklahoma's an interesting team to look at in the SEC this year, just in the way that Texas is garnering all the attention in terms of the former Big 12 newcomers and being talked about as a national title contender, which they are. But there is some heavy optimism in Norman about what Brent Venables is building right now and what Jackson Arnold can be. Jackson Arnold is to Oklahoma what Nico Iamaleava is right now to Tennessee.
So the trajectory of Oklahoma, especially in their first year in the SEC, when we talked about this conversation, what was that, Tuesday? Where we got into how many SEC teams should reasonably have college football playoff expectations this coming year with the expanded 12-team field. We didn't really talk about Oklahoma. We definitely mentioned Texas. They just played in the college football or the college football playoff. You were an advocate of Alabama in ways that I wasn't 100% on board with yet, just because there's so much unknown, even as there's a lot of talent on that roster, and it would be tough. I just think it's tough to sustain anywhere close to the level of Saban right away. We'll find out. Georgia, for sure, belongs in that discussion, and I think it's reasonable for Tennessee to have college football playoff expectations, if not title expectations, in 2024. Is Oklahoma on the same footing as Tennessee for the parallel that you just described about the quarterback situation? Because, Coach, Venables has been there as much time as Heupel?
No. Venables is going into year 3.
And Heupel is 4.
Going into year 4. I think there is a little bit more stability in the Tennessee situation just for the fact that the vast majority of the roster are Heupel players, that you have the sample size of 2022, the 11 wins, beating Alabama with a far less talented roster. And then you take a step back last year, but the roster is in the best place it has been in the Heupel era going into this year. And make no mistake, there is still very much a prove it type of feeling in Knoxville right now. Like, it is not a guarantee that Tennessee is going to be a national title contender year in and year out under Josh Heupel. There is a lot that still needs to be proven, but the optimism is there, and the foundation of that optimism is what they did in 2022 and the talent currently on the roster in 2024, though there are still some questions. With Oklahoma, I think there is less proof of concept because Oklahoma doesn't have the Alabama win, right? Venables doesn't have that Alabama win that Heupel has. And Jackson Arnold has only the bowl game where he had kind of his struggles. Nico showed out a little bit better in the Citrus Bowl than Jackson Arnold did. He was not the starter at any point last year. It was a Dylan Gabriel who is now off to Oregon. And you know what?
Tough to keep track.
And I take that back because
every time we have a college football conversation, I have to have one of these portal trackers in front of me.
No, but I'm wrong on that because Oklahoma does have the Alabama win because they beat Texas last year. I forgot that Oklahoma beat Texas in the Red River Shootout 34-30 in the Cotton Bowl last October. So the parallel is there. Brent Venables has just had less time, and I'm not going to pretend I've studied the content of Oklahoma's roster and its talent profile, but I will say that the Week 4 matchup between Tennessee and Oklahoma in Norman is going to be pivotal for both of those teams in their college football playoff hopes. Josh Heupel going back to Oklahoma for the first time since he was fired as the co-offensive coordinator. So that game has storylines just all over it, and that is Oklahoma's first official foray into the SEC. Its first conference game as an SEC institution, is hosting Tennessee in Norman week 4.
I love the Tennessee-Oklahoma game for so many different reasons. I can't wait for that week. I just can't wait for football season. It's going to be a lot of fun. So quickly, because we are going to keep our team previews rolling here, Dallas Cowboys, all in Jerry Jones. Really not doing much but letting players walk in free agency this year and drafting offensive linemen. Buying or selling their offseason. The Dallas Cowboys, I am a hard sell.
On the Cowboys?
Cowboys.
100%.
Hard sell.
Absolutely a hard sell.
Hard sell.
What have they done?
Draft offensive linemen.
What else?
Which is, matters, but that's about it.
Zeke Elliott.
Oh, they brought it back.
That's about it.
I forgot about Zeke. The corpse of Zeke Elliott.
How many people forgot about that?
How about that?
They're going to tune in. Who's the Cowboys' week 1 opponent?
The Browns. Is that right?
Yeah,
Tom Brady's
the Browns,
first game?
Tom Brady's first broadcast.
Yeah,
That's
Brady.
right.
Tom Brady, Browns, Cowboys on
In
Fox.
Cleveland.
In Cleveland.
So that's not the Thursday night still on Amazon.
Yes. I am, however, buying them as contenders.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing that we're just immediately sold on their offseason.
Sell the offseason.
Still look around
buy
at the
as
NFC.
contenders.
Still.
Well, is the CeeDee Lamb a big enough question mark, though, to question them as contenders?
CeeDee Lamb?
Yes.
A question mark? What is a question mark about CeeDee Lamb?
His entire situation is a question mark right now. He didn't show up to minicamp. He's waiting on his contract.
He's going to play, Lucas. He's going to play.
Sure.
Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott are all going to play football in 2024 for the Cowboys. As long as that core is together for the foreseeable future, they're good enough in a division. I mean, what? Eagles division win? Eagles favored in the NFC East this year? They probably should be. I still in a weak NFC, I still would like the Cowboys because McCarthy's won 12 games, I think 3 times with Dallas. They haven't achieved in the playoffs in the way that Green Bay just dusted them, almost making the NFC Championship game.
Eagles are the favorite at plus 100.
They should be.
According to FanDuel. Cowboys are at plus 145.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I do think it's interesting that both of us looked at each other and said, hard sell Cowboys offseason. Said, yeah, they probably might still make it. 615-737-1045 is the number. Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio. We'll talk about this quarterback salary cap. How viable is it? And should teams be considering these kind of things moving forward into the future? Mac next. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is a great resource for you. If you are somebody dealing with erectile dysfunction, it's okay. It's not anything to freak out about. It's just something that you want to make sure that you have the proper support system in place. In fact, Jackson came to me asking for some advice. I gave him the guidance of seeking out the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and they went above and beyond to make sure that he had all the resources that he needed. They have been doing this for guys for over a decade, and they will find a treatment path that makes the most sense for you as an individual. The TennesseeMen'sClinic.com is where you can go for more information. They even can schedule same or next day appointments and will make the treatment process a breeze. That's the TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Vibes are high on a Friday. Anytime we can catch up with Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio. His visits presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Go to tworiversford.com for more information. It is, in fact, Expedition Month at Two Rivers Ford. By the way, $8,000 off your 2024 Ford Expedition. tworiversford.com for more information. Happy Friday, Mac.
Yes, same to you, Buck. Two Rivers Ford is so solid. I mean, since I've been involved with Two Rivers Ford, I absolutely love it. They're going to be the title sponsor again of Mac Talk this season.
Love that.
They're outstanding. So I would recommend anybody. You need a vehicle, go get a Ford from Two Rivers.
Absolutely. tworiversford.com for more information. They make Mac's visits across the station possible, and the return of Mac Talk, which we always look forward to once we get closer to football season. So football, not a thing right now for the next 6 weeks, Mac, but there is still a lot of interesting stuff to dive into from a coach's perspective. And I want to start with the Trevor Lawrence contract, if we could. The resume, essentially, of Trevor Lawrence next to a guy who he's paid like Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has been to a Super Bowl. He's had significantly more success in the postseason than Trevor Lawrence, and yet the going rate for quarterbacks right now at that rate is about $55 million a year. Without the sticker shock element of it, Mac, I just want you to articulate for the audience how little wiggle room you really have in a decision like that as a coaching staff when you have a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence or Tua or Dak, and there's no easy answer at the position otherwise. Those are the decisions that you have to make as an organization, yes?
Well, as an organization, you're either going to pay what the freight is, or you're going to be chasing another quarterback. I mean, that's what you're charged with. There's definitely we know there's a financial element to this enterprise that's the National Football League, and it plays a big part in it. And when you start talking about salaries, you're chasing the latest salary right now, especially with quarterbacks, really with any position. We've seen exponentially how the wide receiver, you start chasing those salaries. The thing that's happening is though, as long as the only bump to this whole thing, the only speed bump that happened was when COVID happened and the salary cap went down. So if you had contracts that were extended out before COVID hit, then all of a sudden you were struggling to try to make the cap work because you didn't have your salaries layered correctly. Now, with looking at it, and you can't foresee the salary cap ever going down again, and it seems to be increasing exponentially every year just because of the broadcast rights and everything that's going on now in the National Football League. The last time that there was anything major done about contracts was when they started slotting contracts after first round draft picks were getting paid exorbitant amounts of money to be a first round draft pick. And we're making so much more money than veterans were making just coming into the league before they'd ever done anything. Well, they collectively bargained that thing and got that thing, a little bit more evened out. But right now, until there is another collective bargaining agreement, or until there is and all of these will probably be, I would think, Buck, bargaining chips once this 18th game, gets on the docket. You're going to have to pay the freight. That's it. You've got to make that decision. I mean, you've got a choice not to pay him too, but then the ramifications of that come around to bite you too. So you got to make a decision. And as a franchise, you pay a quarterback, then you're not even thinking about if it doesn't work. You're thinking, this is going to work, and then we'll build everything around it. That's just the way it is right now.
Yeah, and I guess to your point about you do have a choice as an organization whether or not to pay the quarterback. But I guess in the instance of two of the players that I described, or even three in Dak, Tua, and Lawrence, there really isn't a decision there, right? Like that because of the caliber of quarterbacks that they are. Because I see a lot of people, in general discourse, debating the worth of those contracts to the organization. Titans fans very quick to pile on the Jags, right? Overpaying Trevor Lawrence or whatever the narrative might be. But as an organization, that's not the thought process. Those players are the ones that you pay.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that is the decision that you make, and you make it not thinking. You never make a decision like that, and you really don't make any financial decision in the National Football League as far as personnel goes, thinking it's not going to work. So, I mean, that's the way you do business in this league right now. And until, something changes as to whether it's collectively bargained, so something else can happen, that's the way it's going to be.
Coach Dave McGinnis, his visits presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
So, Coach, obviously it was a bit of a step back for Lawrence, and I think that's kind of what made that figure controversial, at least for fans, a step back in 2023 from what the Jags accomplished as an ascending franchise with a seemingly ascending quarterback in 2022, winning the division. From what you saw from Trevor Lawrence last season, where did you see him take that step back that you would think Doug Peterson and the Jags are going to look to get back on track this coming season?
They just want more consistency out of him. I mean, he's still, he's a good quarterback, but you want consistency out of it. And of course, nobody's ever going to be perfect, especially at that position, really at no position in the National Football League. But they just want more consistency out of him. That's what they want. I mean, he won games for him last year, but then you come in here and you have a chance to go to the playoffs. And I'm sure that's something that is very rubbing sandpaper across the fan base. Is they came in here and all they had to do was beat the Titans, who were struggling personnel wise last year at the last game of the season, and then the Titans, road race them here, and then all of a sudden they're out of the playoffs. So those types of things, tend to stick in the mentality of it. So that's what he just needs more consistency. I would think that's what they want. I hope he's not consistent at all myself.
Coach Dave McGinnis here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Mac, I don't know if you had seen this from Tom Pelissero talking of he made an appearance on the Rich Eisen show on Wednesday, and they were talking about owners and the discussions being had around capping quarterbacks' salaries at a certain percentage of the cap. I wonder if one, you'd heard that at all, and two, if you had any thoughts on the idea of that as somebody who has had to both clear and manage a cap before.
Well, no, I mean, and that's something that would be, if that's something that's going to be done, with a salary cap league wide, then it's got to be collectively bargained, and then if it's something that's not, well, then they'll have another issue with it. But here's all you have to have, unless it's a steadfast rule, all you have to have, it's just like when we first started all of this off-season program stuff, you finally had to have the NFLPA send people to practices so that coaches weren't trying to jump ahead and beat the system as far as how long they were keeping players on the field, how long they were doing that. All it takes is one group to say, I don't have to do that, I'm going to do this, and then the whole thing falls apart. So unless it's collectively bargained, unless it's set in stone, then it's really just conversation right now out there in the air until you do something concrete about it if you seriously want to do something about an issue.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio with us on 104.5 The Zone. Mac, I have an idea, and I wonder if you can help me get it off the ground. If not today, maybe next time. If you need a little time to think about the exercise that I'm going to pose to you here, okay?
Well, that really opened up a broad spectrum of stuff. I mean,
I'm scheming, okay?
Yeah. Whenever you start with that and then end it with an emphatic okay, if somebody just jumps in and says yeah without knowing what the yeah is about, what you got?
This is a smart man. This is why I need to bounce it off Mac. All right, so we're planning our training camp broadcast, Mac, where they have us out there basically for the entirety of training camp doing a show.
Right.
And Lucas is covered in shame because the last time we did one of these, he tried to field a punt from Brett Kern and muffed it. And he's looking for a chance at redemption. So I'm trying to come up with a somewhat safe list of things that we can perform on the field at training camp that would allow Lucas and Robert to try and redeem themselves athletically, though they probably will not. And I wondered if you might help me come up with our Buck Rising Show Combine by the time training camp comes around.
Yeah, well, first of all, you're going to have to sign a lot of waivers
yes.
before we ever do this.
Correct. The lawyers are already texting me.
The lawyers are texting you, and I'm sure their insurance companies are texting you because their insurance companies, whoever their carrier is, doesn't trust them to make good decisions.
Correct.
I know that.
And we have not cleared this with the Titans,
No, we
Coach.
haven't cleared this with
that
anybody.
as well.
We're just scheming amongst ourselves,
No, well,
so we want to make sure
and-
that you're not culpable in all of this.
Yeah, well, I absolutely have no power, to say, okay, here's what these goofaloops want to do. I sanction these. That's number one. But to me, first of all, Lucas should not be shamed. Look, catching a punt is a lot harder than people think.
Oh, don't let him off the hook,
it
Matt.
keeps me up at night, Coach.
No.
It's extremely hard. It's extremely hard just to catch one out there. If you haven't practiced it the whole time, I mean, the thing that you do when you watch returners do it, it looks so easy. It's not easy just to catch it with nobody coming down screaming at you. So, Lucas, I can't be mad at you for that. Okay?
Nobody was screaming at him, Mac. That's such a cop-out for him. No.
I was holding a Gatorade bottle.
Terrible.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that Buck wants you to do that, what he's hoping is that somebody will sky one, it'll turn over and come down and hit you in the face.
He wants me to fail.
That's true. I'm rooting on his downfall. That's accurate, Mac. Thank you for getting the show.
See, I can't do that. I just can't do that. That's not right. But we'll see if we can come up with something that's fair for both of you.
I do have a question, Coach, because somebody in the YouTube chat, sponsored by F&M Bank, G. Sully says Bert and Lucas versus Olga. So if we were to go up against...
No way. No. No chance.
They actually
No. Look, you're talking about spine damage. You're talking about disc damage. You're talking about you two against Olga in any form or fashion.
What about Bertha?
No chance.
Okay.
No chance.
And it's not
spine damage.
It's not to be played with. You guys would bust everything that you have from the waist down, and you don't want to do that.
But in a hypothetical world where Robert and I...
No, there's no hypothetical about it.
No, but it's a world.
Don't argue with him.
Coach, it's an alternate universe where Robert and I are athletic, 300-pound, 6'4", potential offensive linemen. What coaching points would you have for us in terms of how to attack that technique-wise?
Don't.
Like, what is Bill Callahan coaching up J.C. Latham? The purpose of Bertha and Olga, what is it trying to hone in on technique-wise with players that are actually big and fast and athletic?
It's about leverage. It's about leverage and being able to stay square and work with your leverage from your ankles all the way up through your hips, and then the way your arms work with it. You've got to stay square on it and still be able to make it move. Towards the end, I watch them every day. That's the only group I spent the whole off season with. At the end, he progressed to where they would hit it, two hands, rear it up, and then start moving it, and then take one hand off and start pushing it one armed. So, look, you guys are a long way away from it. So in this universe you're trying to live in right now, here's my suggestion. Don't think about that universe anymore.
So I should throw away this protein shake I'm drinking in preparation.
I would stop your Olga and Bertha preparations. I don't think that's in your future for a variety of different reasons.
We've already talked about Bert's athletic ability. He was telling me he was a space player. He's a space cadet.
Coach Dave McGinnis, always the best on a Friday. Great to catch up with you, Mac. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. His visits, as always, presented by Two Rivers Ford. Thanks for doing it, buddy.
It's great. See you, Lucas.
See you, Coach.
That's Coach Mac with us on 104.5 The Zone.
That's disappointing. That crushed my dreams.
Well, because Skoronski, when he did the show, that was a nice goal. Who was that? Polish?
Poland equalizing 30 minutes in with Robert Lewandowski on the bench.
These are always so fun. So with the sleds, when we had Skoronski on the show at minicamp, he seemed to be very excited about the idea of putting media people on the sleds, which makes me now realize that Peter Skoronski was wishing spine damage on the media members.
Yeah, like watching Latham struggle with it initially.
Scary.
Is terrifying.
Fear.
What that would do to my upper and lower extremities.
It's not even... I do genuinely want, and of course we're not going to waste Bill Callahan's time with like having him walk us through Olga and Bertha, but I do genuinely want to understand how much different it is. Because, I mean, did you play football at any level?
Freshman football.
Okay.
For an 0-8 team. Our program was in shambles. I was the culture guy.
I don't think you could have said anything comedically better than that.
They put me at linebacker. Please explain that logic to shrimpy 5'10".
Well, your head is huge. Clearly, you're cerebral. You should play
exactly. Slap the green dot on me.
Where was I?
Oh man!
But the point is, did you ever? Well, maybe if you went 0-8, did you have sleds to hit? Was there any? What did a practice for an 0-8 football team? So at 0-7, what did your week of preparation look like before the 0-8 finale?
Yeah, freshman football coaches trying to fire up an 0-7 team of ninth graders is a pretty funny sight.
And then just the coaches, trying to probably their first opportunity to get any level of coaching. It's like the substitute math teacher out there with you guys. Oh my God!
The program was in shambles, top to bottom, until my junior year. By that point, I said this is not for me. I'm not going to get my head bashed in to go 0-8.
Oh my God! I gave
year.
myself a headache from laughing.
Yeah. It was something about Bertha and Olga. No, we did. We had sleds, but nothing.
But you've hit a sled. Is
yes,
my point.
I have in my lifetime.
You have in your lifetime hit a sled. Jackson, you have in your lifetime hit a sled.
Yes.
I have in my lifetime hit a sled. So we all fundamentally understand how a sled is approached and an average sled, right? All right. So what makes that so much different than Bill Callahan's situation? That 360, or no, he's not 360, but 330-pound J.C. Latham can't move the damn thing, who has also been moving sleds his entire life at a very, very high level.
It would be fascinating to have a sit down with Bill Callahan and talk about just the process of, the thought process of creating Bertha and Olga, and when that seed was planted, and at what point in his career did he start to, I don't even know how that works. Like, did he patent?
Yes.
Like,
so he invented them.
Right.
He came up with the science for them, patented them, and sells them.
It's fascinating. Like
he sells the technology to other NFL teams.
I'd love to know when that started to kind of come up in his mind about doing something like that type of venture that would help him on the field with the players he's coaching and branch out into a business venture of his. I mean, it's fascinating. I wonder what his clientele looks like. Like, are colleges around the country buying Bertha and Olga sleds to help with offensive line technique?
So the interesting thing is, if you buy the sleds, do you know how to coach it?
Right.
That's the thing. Because, I mean, you heard Mac, and, like, not really joking around with us, be like, no,
don't do it.
You would end your back, ostensibly, for the rest of your life if you tried to move these sleds without the proper training. So you can buy the sled technology, but you can't buy Bill Callahan. Now, I'm sure he has some kind of, I don't know what his level of outreach and, like, not outreach, but like teaching other people who buy the sleds, if it comes with an instruction manual, if you can watch it on YouTube, I don't know. But I assume that if there is some level of marketing around it to make it a viable product, you have to also offer some level of knowledge about how the thing is used and how not to hurt yourself. So I want the training camp Buck Rising Show Combine, perhaps that 6 weeks is enough time for me to clear it through all the legal channels around Cumulus, the Titans, and the coaching staff.
And enough time for me to train.
For you to train. I'm going to have Jackson running around with you after you with a camera, documenting your training, Rocky style. 615-737-1045 is the number. All right, do I have things to give away for Friday Fire? Do I have anything in the nebulous, terrible prize bucket?
Yes, we have 2 tickets to see Matt Rife when he comes to Bridgestone Arena.
Comedian?
Yeah.
Yes, Matt Rife, stand-up comedian.
Excellent.
Very famous on social media, has a Netflix special.
Okay, Bridgestone Arena. If you want 2 tickets to Matt Rife's stand-up comedy show at Bridgestone Arena, all you need to do is give us some feel-good. Friday Fire. What in your life made you feel good this weekend? Did the person that you hate at work get fired? Did that make you happy? I'm still waiting for that to happen in my work life. I'm still waiting for somebody to hand deliver the news to me about Lucas's firing at some point in the near future. So that can't be my Friday fire today, but perhaps it happened to you. Maybe you had a great success in your workplace, in your home life, whatever the case may be. All you need to do is give us some positivity, because we need it on a Friday. 615-737-1045 is the number. Give us your Friday fire. We will give you 2 tickets to Matt Rife's comedy special at Bridgestone Arena coming up next. That's right. We need the feel good. Give us your Friday fire. If you give us the best submission, it is subjective, I will admit, but if you give us the best submission, we will give you 2 tickets to Matt Rife's comedy special at Bridgestone Arena. Comedian who has also a Netflix special out right now. 615-737-1045 is the number. Like I said, it just has to be a moment of positivity, sports or otherwise. Mine is the headline that came out immediately, almost immediately after the hiring of JJREK as the next head coach of the Lakers. The headline that came out was that LeBron James had no involvement whatsoever in the hiring of JJREK as the head coach of the Lakers, to which I ugly laughed.
What a coincidence.
Ugly laughed out loud, cackled, guffawed, some might even say. Laughed at my phone as hard as I've laughed at anything that's come across my phone, at least in the last week. The idea that the person who hosts a podcast with JJREK, who happens to be the most influential and famous player in that particular league right now, and who is basically holding a franchise hostage, or whomever the franchise is hostage, about drafting his son so he can have the opportunity to play with him at some point. The idea that that person, who famously is the most passive-aggressive player with coaches of any player, any star player that I can think of in the last 20 years of basketball, that he had no involvement in hiring JJREK is laugh out loud funny. That is my Friday fire. Thank you, LeBron, for having the best comedic moment that you have had at any point in your career since that movie appearance.
Please let him just take his ball and go home. Go somewhere else.
LeBron?
Yeah. Wouldn't that be funny?
Fan.
Is that not? But I'm all for comedy.
Oh, you
like
you
if the
want
Lakers
disaster.
hired his podcast mate as his head coach and he just decides to leave in free agency. That's not funny.
Famously, the only franchise that has been able to kind of like survive the post-LeBron fallout is the Heat. The Heat with Jimmy Butler have gone to the finals. They haven't won.
Heat culture.
Truly, no, like the Heat, Pat Riley and the Heat are the thing that has been able to survive. How just catastrophic it can be when LeBron basically has you mortgage your entire franchise while he's there and then leaves you with nothing afterwards. So that's what the Lakers are getting ready to experience.
My Friday fire is Fox's coverage yesterday for the baseball game at legendary, historic Rickwood Field. Did you see any of this?
No, I didn't.
The Cardinals-Giants game yesterday.
No, did not.
It was so cool. Now, Rickwood Field, are you familiar at all with Rickwood Field? It's the oldest ballpark in America.
I'm a baseball idiot. Treat me as such.
It's located right outside of Birmingham, so I've gotten the chance to go, having grown up in Birmingham. It is a stunning, stunning place to go. I mean, when you think of the legends that played there, Babe Ruth, the Negro League legends that came through, and yesterday was honoring a lot of the original Negro League players that played at Rickwood Field. It featured the first all-black umpiring crew in AL-NL history. And for a half inning, the broadcast was 1950s style with the picture and the audio. Talked a lot about Willie Mays and honoring him, the legend who passed away at the age of 93 2 days ago. This was so well done. We are not a baseball show, right? Famously, we rip Major League Baseball a lot on this show. Baseball,
We are the least equipped to rip Major League Baseball of anybody because we watch none of it.
By far the least qualified. But
I'm shocked you saw this.
Baseball, I wanted to see it because I know Rickwood Field and I've been there and I knew this was happening.
Okay,
so,
cool.
You know, full disclosure, I watched 1 to 2 innings and then went back to Copa America soccer.
Is that as much baseball as you will watch all year? And Major League Baseball?
Major League Baseball, probably on TV. I was at a game a couple weeks ago, but on TV.
Sure.
This was so well done, and I want to play a snippet from Reggie Jackson's sit down with the Fox crew because he talked about a lot of the struggles he went through as a black player in Major League Baseball in the time that he played, going down south to places like Alabama, around Rickwood Field. This was Reggie Jackson with Alex Rodriguez and the rest of the Fox crew. How much time?
Fortunately, I had a manager, Johnny McNamara, that if I couldn't eat in the place, nobody would eat. We'd get food to travel. If I couldn't stay in a hotel, they'd drive to the next hotel and find a place where I could stay. Had it not been for Raleigh Fingers, Johnny McNamara, Dave Duncan, Joe and Sharon Rudy, I slept on their couch 3-4 nights a week for about a month and a half. Finally, they were threatened that they would burn our apartment complex down unless I got out. I wouldn't wish it on any.
I encourage anyone to go watch the whole thing. It's all over social media. Hall of Famer Reggie Jackson talking about those experiences.
And for context, we bleeped the N-word out. He said it twice on national television, and it's not my place to determine what's right or wrong for people to hear in real time. But if Reggie Jackson feels like it's that moment is necessary to kind of emphasize, that's what they hit us in the face with when we would go and play baseball games and then try and go get lunch afterwards. That person, that blank, can't eat here.
Well, and him remembering that like it happened yesterday.
Viscerally.
A stark reminder that it wasn't that long ago.
Oh, my God, he still sounds traumatized.
Yeah, a really emotional segment with the entire Fox crew. And shout out to Fox for staying with it the whole time and letting Reggie Jackson tell that story. And just really good emotional stuff from Fox and Major League Baseball yesterday down at historic Rickwood Field.
Go.
I'm going back to Tennessee baseball, and it's not about the College World Series. A.J. Russell, their pitcher, hurt himself in the SEC tournament, had to have Tommy Johns. His recovery time initially looking at 12 to 18 months, but that has been shortened to 8 months as of this week after he had his surgery.
Yeah, he said he cried initially when he found out that he had to have Tommy John. He hurt himself well before the SEC tournament. Yeah. Remember, he came back and pitched a couple innings against Vanderbilt and then was pulled, and the next thing you know, he's going under. And yes, that's really good for A.J. Russell.
615-737-1045. Give us your Friday fire. Let's start with DeJuan, who's an accountant.
Hey, man. What makes me feel good is just every time I go to Instagram and something on the Titans pops up from their social media handle, for the first time in forever, it feels like they're actually having fun now. Like, forget the game. It looks like everybody's getting along, not just the linemen. They're not just in their own cliques. Everybody's having fun. The quarterback is relatable. It just feels like a different age for Titans football, and that just makes me feel good.
Sure. I get that. I appreciate the call. Stay on hold for the opportunity to win the tickets. We appreciate you. Yeah, they've done Tajay Spears mic'd up for sound. Tajay is nothing but good energy. Will Levis, they're marketing it more. They're like, and that was a big thing with John Robinson. John had a weird level of like hypersensitivity to the social media stuff. And that's fine, I guess, if you're a super paranoid football person and how does this help me win games if you tweet this about, whatever. But that they're allowing that stuff to be out there, that they're leaning in on the social media stuff at a time where it's easy to do because I haven't lost a football game yet. Yeah, vibes are high.
And they've got some personalities to showcase.
They do. A lot more than they have in recent years, for sure. Rick is up next. Hey, Rick.
Hey, Buck.
What you got?
That was a fantastic story about Reggie Jackson. Did not know that. Bryson DeChambeau. Been watching pro golf for almost 50 years. If you saw the smile on that disabled man's face when he stopped, signed his hat, and he goes on to win. And in addition to that, I think people will question whether he is being genuine in the last year in the way he acts. In that moment, I believe he is absolutely genuine, and he continues to show that. He's in Nashville with the trophy. He's stopping talking to people. His attitude adjustment is phenomenal, and it's just great to see.
I appreciate the call, Rick. He's 25, isn't he? DeChambeau, he's not that old. He's pretty young. So like the idea that people are hitting him for the maturity stuff.
He's 30.
Is he 30?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought he was younger than that. Either way. But he's been hit with some of the maturity stuff early on in his career. He's been kind of is it abrasive, the right personality? descriptor for him. And anyway, he does seem to have a level of self-awareness about that right now. All right, last one. Trey is up next. Hey, Trey. Good submissions today.
Hey, Buck. Hey, guys. Mine is a little personal. So I got my dad got diagnosed with esophageal cancer in February. Got biopsies back this week after chemo and radiation. Cancer-free. Still got to have surgery, but, man, that's the best news we could hear for a family.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
Let's
Congratulations. We are very happy to hear that for you and your family, Trey. Please pass on our best wishes. All right. Does Trey win?
Trey wins.
Trey wins.
Trey wins.
Trey wins going away.
We do have a Hattie B's Feed Your Flock pack to give away.
Oh.
For the runner-up.
Ooh.
So does
Who's the runner-up?
DeJuan talking Titans football and the emergence of personalities on social media, feeling good about the Titans again, or Rick talking about Bryson DeChambeau and his evolution?
Jackson, you hold control of the nebulous prize bucket.
Let's take a vote.
He just said you hold control. Now you're trying to seed?
I said we vote.
All right, I'll go with Rick.
Yeah, I'll go with Rick.
All right, I'll take Rick.
That was enthralling.
The motion passes.
Coward. All right, so somebody gets the Feed Your Flock package from Hattie B's. Somebody gets the Matt Rife tickets. Jackson will work through the logistics with you back there behind the glass. Coming up next, the most intriguing quarterback storyline in the NFL. We'll tell you.
12:03, good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Titans quarterback Will Levis joined 3HL in studio on Thursday and talked about how being a part of multiple offenses in his career has helped him to this point.
Yeah, no, I think just because I've done it before. I think I've refined my process throughout the years on how I want to learn things, but feel comfortable learning new things and taking coaching and going out on the field with it.
You can watch that entire interview now on 104.5 The Zone's YouTube page or go back and listen to the 3HL podcast. In college football news, Oklahoma head coach Brent Venables is receiving a contract extension, according to ESPN head coach Pete Thamel, who says he receives a significant raise, though those specifics have not been released. Venables led Oklahoma to a 10-3 season last year in his second year in charge as the Sooners enter the SEC for the first time in 2024. The National Championship Series in Omaha starts this weekend. Tennessee taking on Texas A&M, a 3-game series starting Saturday night at 6:30. Chris Stamos slated to start on the bump for the Vols. You can hear the Vol Network coverage all weekend right here on The Zone. Coverage starts at 6:15 tomorrow. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour on this Friday. We appreciate you spending some time here with us. If I asked you what the most intriguing quarterback storyline in the National Football League this year is, what would you say? Many of you are Titans fans. The majority of you are Titans fans. I would assume that a lot of you would go with the success or failure, the season that Will Levis is going to have the opportunity to define himself by in 2024, because we've talked about this. This is the make or break year for Will Levis, and I think we're all on the same page with that. There are a ton of different quarterback storylines out there that would probably supersede Levis in 2024, but how many are actually that much more interesting? The contracts that we're getting ready to work through, the contract discussions that we're getting ready to work through with Dak Prescott, with Tua Tagovailoa, and most recently with Trevor Lawrence. Jordan Love is on the horizon as well. The Dallas Cowboys quarterback is always going to be the most popular discussion point. Though, have you had much experience with Dolphin fans on the internet?
I can't say I have.
I fear them. There's not many NFL fans. The Tua stands, they call them Tuanon.
I get that, because is there a more productive but more questioned is a good word, quarterback in the NFL than Tua?
No.
Like, no quarterback puts up the numbers that Tua does.
Well, you could argue
the question
Dak.
marks.
You could argue Dak for Dak having, because Dak, again, they have won 11 or 12 games at a pretty good clip. While Dak Prescott's been the quarterback of the Cowboys, they just don't win in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's more with Tua because Dak has a much longer sample size of a career. Dak also was a fourth-round pick. Didn't come with the expectations of a top-5 pick that Tua did. I mean, Tua, 5-star, coming out of high school, one of the best quarterbacks in college football at Alabama, top-5 pick, all of those things. And with Tua, it's more about the offense around him benefiting him, because I don't think that's as much the discussion with Dak as it is with Tua.
Which I think is fair criticism to an extent on Tua. But we just talked about this with Coach Mack. Is there any question, go around the room, is there any question in any of our minds that the Miami Dolphins should pay Tua Tagovailoa? Anybody questioning that decision? Because I'm sure as hell not.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm good.
But I understand the pushback of fans on deals like, I mean, mostly on the Lawrence deal, because Lawrence's resume is not even Tua's. Tua at least has accomplished some level of success. He has been in the conversation as one of the better players and has statistically led at various points NFL passers, especially last season. Lawrence hasn't done that yet. I think there's going to be a fair amount of fans who use that, well, Mike McDaniel is the reason that Tua's any good. Look at Tua with Brian Flores. And Tua did a little bit of winning with Brian Flores before he was actually a successful quarterback. They had a decent team around him at the time.
That's when the availability stuff was really a big issue with Tua. And to his credit, he got past a lot of that last season. Can he do it with a longer stretch of time? We'll see. But last season, injuries were not a massive red flag for Tua.
Right. So, the questions, Jim Freaking Nance on YouTube, where you can interact with the show, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You can call in as well. He says, can Tua play in the cold? Yeah, but can Mike White play in the cold? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the conversation that you're having. You can have your pushback on Tua or Lawrence or Dak or Levis or Stroud or basically everybody but Mahomes. Lamar Jackson is a 2-time NFL MVP, and there are plenty of people who will push back on Lamar still and say, oh, but he's a running back. Dumb. There's always going to be some level of stupidity in these conversations. I think the pushback on Tua is the most fair because I also value the system that he plays in. But how much different is Tua than Brock Purdy?
Oh, they're very different. I mean, I think their backgrounds are totally different.
Okay, well, I'm talking about the player.
In terms of what? In terms of their style of play, their production?
How they execute the offense that they operate in. Now, maybe that's too in-depth of a question for me to ask because I'm not expecting you to have grinded San Francisco 49er tape.
Haven't been grinding the tape.
Okay.
But they are both considered to be more a product of their offenses and what's around them than their offenses having success directly because of the quarterback.
Anytime, and Mike McDaniel comes from Kyle Shanahan's system in San Francisco. Anytime you talk about Kyle Shanahan quarterbacks, you often get, well, it's Kyle Shanahan playing Madden. He's the one with the controller. He's just controlling, he's hitting the buttons for the quarterback to throw the pass or, make the read or hand it off or whatever. That's fine. But nobody does it better in their systems than Purdy and Tua. So both things can be so. I guess, we're getting bogged down in a bit of a Tua conversation. Quarterback storylines that are most interesting. If I gave you if we did a snake draft and I said, what's the most interesting quarterback storyline in 2024? I think there's only one answer, and I'd be surprised. I'd be curious to know which or what the two of you would answer. With Jackson?
The Steelers. I'm so interested to see what happens.
Which is a good one.
I would too.
With Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Like, Justin Fields only has 1 year remaining on his deal, so it's not like he's waiting in the wings for Russell to, it's just so convoluted. I'm so interested to see what's going to happen in Pittsburgh.
Like, how good does Russell Wilson have to be? Because nobody's bearing down on Russell Wilson in Denver, right? Jarrett Stidham, that's not a big talking point in Denver the last couple of years. Like, put in Stidham. Yeah. But with Justin Fields in that room, now it is. How good does Russell Wilson have to be for him to not get yanked for the upside of Justin Fields? I agree with Jackson.
I'm seeing some nominations for Aaron Rodgers' Achilles in the YouTube chat. I am seeing also, what else? Rodgers' Achilles. Steelers, I'm here for that one, says Eric. Steve says, man, Lamar can't get past what's happening in his head in the playoffs. Freakish talent, but he just completely chokes mentally in the postseason. I don't think that's true. Is it Lamar's fault that they didn't run the football? That's what a ridiculous comment.
That L'Jarius Sneed punched out that
what the hell?
Zay Flowers ball on the goal line.
That's just that speaks to me of complete ignorance of what this person is doing. And just kind of assigning.
So what's your answer? You have a clear-cut answer.
The clear-cut answer to me is Aaron Rodgers because of what we're talking about, the implications of Rodgers' success or failure. Value of a coach, right? How important is Robert Saleh if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt again or isn't, close to what we expect Aaron Rodgers to be? Not that important, because how important was he last year? They didn't do bleep. Aaron Rodgers, if he's close to right, really changes the conversation about the balance of power in the AFC East. It should.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love the drama. I mean, sometimes I do, but not constantly, the way it's just exhaustive with him. but he is a compelling enough figure. He is currently the most powerful player of his situation in the NFL, and his presence, his ability or his availability, or however you want to contextualize this, him starting for the Jets at quarterback has the most ability to swing a situation from one way to the other. Does Russell Wilson being functional substantially change your opinion about the Pittsburgh Steelers this year?
Not necessarily.
Probably not.
Yeah. But
I get what you're saying about how interesting it is because Russ is, borderline a Hall of Fame caliber player prior to the last couple of years, and Justin Fields is a former first-round pick. I get that.
Everything hinges on Aaron Rodgers for the success of the Jets. With the Steelers, you can't necessarily say that about Russ because of what could be with Justin Fields. But could Aaron Rodgers get a podcast host to be his head coach in New York? Does he have that type of power?
I think so.
Absolutely.
I think so.
615-737-1045. What about Deshaun Watson? I mean, think about it. With the price tag of a Russell Wilson, it's different because the Steelers are not paying the price tag. Denver's still paying it. But you know what I mean. Same figure, similar figure in terms of contract that has massively underperformed and has a loaded roster around him. And it's all about, can he get back to pre-2021 Deshaun Watson? It is fascinating to me.
If he's good, I could make the argument for the Browns being the best or the most talented roster in football. I think I could make that pretty easily. Top to bottom, both sides of the ball. They are stacked. Stacked. And that's even with some attrition. If he's even close to right. So, yeah, I'd accept the Browns. 615-737-1045 is the number. What Will Levis had to say about what will help him succeed as he learns yet another new offense. And as a Titans fan, what about Will Levis do you think most equips him to succeed in this Brian Callahan offense? We'll take your phone calls and your comments, and you'll hear from the quarterback in his visit with 3HL yesterday coming up next. No, wait, is this sad music? Is there a sad, weepy version of this as Italy gets bounced from the 2024 Euros?
They have not been bounced.
In group stage?
They have not been bounced.
Lost in group play?
Lost in group play yesterday to Spain, but... Yes,
louder. I want to hear the sadness louder. I just imagine you singing this song, weeping. Who did they lose to yesterday?
To Spain, who looks fantastic and should be tournament favorites. But no, I asked Jackson to pull that earlier this week, hoping for a celebratory Italian anthem to play after a big 3 points against Spain, but was not to be.
Okay. Some say the Italian national team embarrassed their nation.
Oof.
Thoughts, Lucas?
Oh, man, Spain was just fantastic. But that song is a banger, though. Toto Cotugno.
All right. Well, you're not here for the Italian Euro update.
Definitely not.
You're here to talk about your quarterback and your quarterback. Immediately, as soon as we started talking about soccer, the guy that all the talk about the wide receivers dropped.
I'm out.
He ran, screaming. So, Will Levis in studio with 3HL yesterday. You can check out the full interview. Is it just the full show, or did they post it as a full hour on the YouTube channel, Jackson?
They're releasing it in parts. I don't know how many parts are up. I believe it's one. One part is up. So
the Boom Boom Room segment.
How many parts?
5.
He spent a long time in studio.
An hour, 5 parts? Is an hour is 5 parts?
Am I the one?
What is this, the OJ documentary? Okay.
Careful.
That's neither here nor there. Levis. I didn't recklessly speculate about anything.
I don't know. The OJ documentary just seemed a little speculatory.
I wasn't comparing Will Levis to OJ Simpson. Relax back there.
Keep it moving.
Continue.
Right. Will Levis was here yesterday in studio, and he talked to 3HL. He talked about a great many things. One of the things that caught my attention was the amount of turnover that he's worked through in his career, collegiately and professionally, and how that's going to benefit him, because it's not something that a lot of college players really have to deal with. So like Bryce Young. How many offensive coordinators did Bryce Young have at Alabama?
Ooh, off the top of my head.
Because it wasn't Bill O'Brien the whole way through, was it?
No, he had Sark. 2.
So 2. Will Levis, as a college football player, had 4 different offensive coordinators because he transferred. 2 years at Penn State. 2 years at Kentucky as the starter, 4 offensive coordinators in that time. His first year as a pro, Tim Kelly. Tim Kelly is now gone. Brian Callahan and Nick Holtz in. So you are talking about 5 straight off seasons where he has worked under 5 straight offensive play callers in some form or fashion. Continuity is one of the most important things that a quarterback can have. But Will Levis talking yesterday about how he's gotten to know the system that Brian Callahan is going to operate, and how much that is going to help him, how much the coaching turnover is going to help him. So let's first start with the thoughts on Callahan.
Yeah, meeting him right from the jump, him showing his trust in me, and knowing that when I have the keys to this thing, that I'm going to be able to get it done. So right off the bat, like going through his philosophy and how he sees a game and how he calls it, and just kind of running through a game and just feeling the flow of the game and the play calls and what we're looking for in terms of against what. And it just makes sense. And a lot of plays and a lot of concepts where, it seems like it shouldn't be as easy as it is in terms of, this is the guy that we were thinking about throwing to. You're thinking about it all the time, and most of the time it's just there. So the game's become comfortable for me, and I feel like I've done a good job of being able to compartmentalize the offense and figure out what we're trying to get done with it.
So it's almost you remember when Justin Fields got up in front of Chicago media and talked about how, game didn't really seem that much faster, and everybody dragged him, right? Hit him over the head with it. What do you mean? You just got here. You don't know anything. You're a rookie. And then over time, Justin Fields had some moments where game didn't look too fast for him, and he was one of the best athletes on the field. And then there are parts of learning the quarterback position that were not as easy for Justin Fields, and you could see that kind of struggle through his lack of progression as an NFL passer beyond just being one of the best athletes at quarterback on the field. Levis talking about being more comfortable. And coupled with the idea, Brent asks him a follow-up. He has 5 different offensive coordinators in the last 5 off seasons. Brent Doherty asked him about that specifically yesterday, and this was his response.
Yeah, no, I think just because I've done it before. Yeah. I think I've refined my process throughout the years on how I want to learn things, but feel comfortable learning new things and taking coaching and going out on the field with it.
So he's refined how he learns things as a product of having been through so many different coaching staffs, so many different coaching styles, so many different personalities, and different systems. Now, it's not a different system every year. Scangarello ran a version of what Liam Cohen was trying to run. It's just the personnel got significantly worse from 21 to 22 at Kentucky, and also the talent drop-off was big. So now you're talking about a reverse Kentucky situation here in Tennessee, in theory. Talent's supposed to get better. I don't know that Tim Kelly's a bad play caller. I think Tim Kelly got banged by the injuries as much as anybody else on that team. So we'll see how much better the personnel can be and how much better a version of Will Levis we can get in the Brian Callahan system, where he's talking about, one, I've had the opportunity to streamline how I learn things.
He's had to.
He's 25. He's played a lot of football in a lot of different scenarios. And that's most similar to what his life in the NFL is going to be. If a play caller does well, you're probably going to turn him over at a pretty good rate.
But 5 and 5 years at different levels, it's got to be so hard to develop, to have a streamlined arc of development at that rate.
Sure, but he's done it anyway.
Sure.
Which is the point.
I mean, you brought up Bryce Young, and for what it's worth, Bryce Young did have Bill O'Brien for the 2 years he was a starter at Bama. Yeah. He had Sark the year he was a backup in 2020. But Bryce Young is about to be on his 3rd play caller in less than 2 seasons because of the dysfunction that took place in Carolina last year with Frank Reich and then handing it down. What was the name of the play caller that Frank Reich, he gave him play calling duties and then he took it back? And then,
no, it's the guy. Wasn't it the guy?
The Titans interviewed him, right?
Oh, my God. Thomas Brown, is that right?
Either way, Bryce Young is... And then Frank Reich got fired. So how many play callers did Bryce Young have in one season alone? Like 3?
And you saw what happened to Bryce Young for a variety of different reasons. Offensive line took a dive. Was not expected to be that bad in 2023. Playmakers, they had none. They traded away their best playmaker for the right to draft Bryce Young with that pick. And then what did Rossini call it? Rossini was reporting on the Panthers. She called it almost, not Game of Thrones, but something like that. Hunger Games. She called it a Hunger Games-like environment in the Panthers coaching offices because people are trying to undermine other people, to the owner, David Tepper, who is apparently running a version of Succession with the Carolina Panthers organization.
It's a bad situation. So it's hard to develop. It's hard to grow in that situation for a young quarterback like Bryce Young. So this is a big opportunity for Will Levis, and why it was so important for the Titans, in my mind, to hire an offensive-minded play-calling head coach, because for the quarterback, the most important asset you have the chance at continuity for a stretch of years, right? Maybe there's defensive coordinator turnover. Denard Wilson absolutely could get a head coaching job within the next, 2 to 3 years if things go well with the Titans. But as long as Brian Callahan is the head coach, you figure he will be the play caller. He will be the voice in Will Levis's ear. And that has got to be a huge sigh of relief for Will Levis.
Because you're running that system. No matter let's say they're successful and Nick Holtz gets Brian Callahan at some point down the road and goes to be the next head coach of whomever. You still retain Callahan and the system, and you're bringing in whomever to learn as the offensive coordinator, or to coach as the offensive coordinator in that Callahan system. That continues that continuity. So, some comments from the F&M Bank chat, because I asked Titans fans, what gives you the most confidence in Will Levis that he's going to be able to succeed in this system? 615-737-1045 is how you chime in on the phone lines. You can also interact on the F&M Bank chat. Brian on YouTube says, so what you're saying to me is Levis doesn't elevate the talent around him. Talking about last year's Titans offense and Tim Kelly. What I had to say about Tim Kelly not being able to do as much because of the personnel situation they had. Brian says here, what you're saying is that Levis doesn't elevate the talent around him, but that he needs talent around him to succeed. Everybody needs talent around them to succeed. Josh Allen is not doing this alone.
And he did elevate. He immediately
like elevated the roster. Okay, so you were 6-11 last year. Think about how much worse you would have been if you didn't have Will Levis on.
Hadn't scored 28 points in a game in how long?
Almost. It had been over a calendar year.
And then immediately his first start. And I understand that there's no film on him or whatever, but you can't say he didn't in some way elevate the talent. And that was my biggest concern about him coming out, remember, was that at no point in that last season at Kentucky did it feel like Will Levis elevated that team around him when the talent had dropped off around him. And he was dealing with a lot that season. And he gave some insight on that, too, to 3HL. If you go back and watch that or listen to that whole interview about just how much he was having to battle through that last year injury-wise at Kentucky. A lot that we probably didn't know as much of. But that was my biggest concern about him coming out. And he showed right off the bat that he has the ability to elevate that talent. I'm an idiot, and I was wrong. Yes.
Just the delight that sweeps over Jackson's face anytime he can play that. That's fantastic. Not that one. I think that there is a lot. Well, you had many concerns about Levis coming up. But I think, which, by the way, is probably the reason that we didn't get an hour in studio with him instead of 3HL.
Oh, sure. Like I'm that important.
That resonates. Seems to resonate. We'll see if we ever get the quarterback back on the show. Anyway, Levis is an interesting example because the Titans were wretched last year, and he clearly elevated them. Like, think about how much worse that football team would have been if Malik had had to start the stretch. Like, if Malik had come in, respectfully to Malik, if Malik had to gone in there after Tannehill went down.
Against the Falcons?
Against the Falcons or against the Steelers.
No, let's say the Falcons, that first game.
It does not look like that.
I don't think
Respectfully, it does not look like that. I mean, I covered Malik Willis's first NFL start. I can tell you definitively, it did not look like that. There is no dispute. So it's kind of this. So we're in this weird gap with Levis already, and it's kind of it's weird to even say that we're in this spot with him because it feels like it happened so quickly. But again, he's a second-round pick. You don't have extra years of contractual control to manage this situation. Wentz and Goff didn't look like he immediately belonged. Mariota and Winston were NFL starters right away. Right away. You and Mariota's first start was against Winston, and there was no disputing. You couldn't tell Titans fans that wasn't going to be a long-term start in the NFL after the way that he performed opposite Winston, especially. Was Jameis' first pass a pick six in that game?
Parrish Cox?
It was something like that. Anyway. But Jameis, did you ever have a question in your mind as to whether Jameis Winston belonged at the NFL level?
Not really.
Mariota?
No, out of the gates, no.
Wentz?
No, Wentz was fantastic early in his career.
Goff wasn't, but then they made the coaching change, and McVay, I mean, that was year 2 that they went to the Super Bowl? It was a totally different narrative around Goff. You never at any point felt, watching those players, the thing that you felt watching Malik, which is that, oh, he's drowning. He's just underwater out there. And there's a lot more that needs to be done for this to be serviceable, which was evidenced by them bringing in Josh Dobbs and immediately replacing Malik Willis. He couldn't do it.
Well, now I think that is a slightly unfair. Like, you're right about Malik, but when you are a number 1 overall pick,
the expectation is
expectation is you're NFL ready.
But
Malik
I guess my comparison is between the second round pick that they have at quarterback and the third round pick that they have at quarterback. And we understand, I mean, should Levis have been a first round pick? Probably. Levis probably should have been. They tried to make him a first round pick. Minnesota wouldn't trade.
Cody Sensabaugh, by the way, had the pick 6.
That's wild.
By Jameis. I think it was Jameis's third because they had 2. Doug Martin had 2 run plays and then the pick 6.
Titans legend Cody Sensabaugh. So the level of belonging. I have never had a doubt in my mind about Will Levis belonging at the professional level, the way that immediately it happened with Malik. So with that, we're talking about a different baseline. Levis with 3HL yesterday talking about his excitement, Jackson, for the new offense and what all it will lead to. And you've heard him talk about this to a degree before, but I thought this was just a little bit of an extended version of it.
I'm not going to say it's too different. I'm not going to say like we're going to be throwing the ball around the yard, every single play, but it does seem like it'll be a little bit more, pass heavy, which is fun for me. Throwing the ball on first down and just keeping the defense a little more on their toes, and especially when we have running backs, like you said, that can catch the ball and
they can run route
be so dynamic out of the backfield.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're gonna have to figure out as the camp goes on and throughout preseason who our guys are, who's best at what, and we won't really know exactly what the offense is gonna mold into until we start seeing who shows up.
What are you laughing at?
Slay at the end. Can we get that?
That idiot.
That last bit. Just that very last.
Seeing who shows up.
That idiot put on that Traylon Burks jersey during that interview yesterday. Dawn says it smells bad. He's been wearing it so much.
Is that
I'm not going to say.
Oh, he was trying to play it again. Is it like a superstitious thing?
Wait. Ron Slay. How bad? No, not yet. Damn it.
No, that was Slay acknowledging you.
Does the Traylon Burks jersey smell bad? Probably so. That's what it smells like when you walk by it.
Is it a superstitious thing? Like he won't wash it until Traylon Burks
I don't know.
catches a touchdown?
I thought it was a perfect opportunity for Slay to bring our bet to the forefront because famously I've been making fun of Slay for that jersey because I bet him if Traylon Burks exceeds 800 yards receiving this year, I'll wear the Traylon Burks jersey. He's got to wash it. He has to wash it. I won't wear it if he doesn't wash it. But I'll wear the Traylon Burks. It's too sensual. Yeah, a little too close there. I will wear the Traylon Burks jersey and nothing else for an entire show if Traylon Burks exceeds 800 yards. And I thought Slay had the perfect opportunity to bring that up with Levis yesterday. Missed opportunity. Terrible. Anyway. So there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about Will Levis this year. But I think the thing that I'm most reassured by is the fact that he's already dealt with NFL level coaching turnover and continues to progress outside of the injury plagued season in 2022. That I think has equipped him with it, if not all of the tools to be able to do this and do this at to legitimately make a leap to where we're talking about Will Levis as a bona fide starting quarterback in 2024 and not just kind of this sideshow that people didn't see last year because they were 3-6 in his 9 starts. I think the part of him talking about streamlining his way, the way that he learns, is the thing that most reassures me if I'm a Titans fan. Because that's what he has to have. He has to have the ability to adapt. He's gonna go through some level of change every year. But he's already been through more change than he's probably going to have to experience now that Brian Callahan's his head coach, at least for the foreseeable future.
There's a report that the Titans have been in contact with a certain special teamer about potentially joining the team for the upcoming season.
All right, we'll get to that coming up next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Boogie Shoes means the end of the week. It's been a good one, been a great one. Make sure if you missed any of the high quality, highly produced content that we have been belching out around here for the better part of a week, you can check out the podcast feed or subscribe to 104.5 The Zone on YouTube channel. You can watch this nonsense for 12 straight hours if you so choose, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Zone TV. Like the video while you're there. Before we wrap up, all right, so two things. Will we have a College World Series champion, one way or the other, crowned by the time this show meets next?
No.
I'm going to say no. Both teams are really good. I think it goes to 3 games.
Texas and Tennessee, Texas A&M and Tennessee to 3 games, which would mean a game Monday night or Monday afternoon?
Monday night.
Monday night in the College World Series. I would think it unlikely that either team would sweep the other at this point.
It's hard. It's hard to go undefeated in Omaha, and A&M and Tennessee are both undefeated to this point.
So we'll definitely have a Stanley Cup champion crown by the time we get together next, one would think.
Will we?
I would think.
I don't know. Edmonton wins tonight. Game 6 back in Florida. We'll see. We'll see. Are we going to pay this off, or are you going to make Titans fans wonder who I was talking about with the report that the Titans are in contact with a specialist for the 2024 season?
I think you've just told them. Go ahead.
A to Z Sports reporting that the Titans have been in contact with explosive UFL kick returner Jawan Manigo, who played his college ball at Delaware State, won MVP honors as a receiver and return specialist in the Mexican LFA League, and then made his UFL debut at the Arlington Renegades in March.
MVP honors back-to-back years in Mexico's LFA. Did you know they played football in Mexico?
I knew they played football in Mexico. I didn't know what the league was called. But Titans have reportedly been in contact with this player, I don't know, as a training camp ad. And for what it's worth, his time in the UFL, in this UFL season, was not with the kickoff format that the NFL is adopting in 2024.
Okay, worth paying attention to. 615-737-1045 is the number. Last call for phone calls this week. If you got them, don't forget, Blaine Bishop coming up next. You can get in with Blaine, 3HL after that. And still time with us. Steve is a physical therapist up next.
Buck.
Hey.
Thank you for taking my... What's going on, big man?
Not much.
Thanks for taking my call. Hey, I hope Will Levis does everything. We surrounded him with all the talent, but let's not forget he's in a first-year offense. Technically, and I'll argue he's still a rookie, even though he played, 7 games last year?
9. He's not a rookie. Stop it, Steve. Stop.
Now, wait a minute.
Do not coddle that quarterback. Steve, don't you coddle that quarterback. He is second-year starting quarterback in the NFL. Don't you coddle that quarterback.
Thank you, Lucas. All right, so what I'm worried about is, a lot of people are building this up as the Titans could go this. Let's hope we get 7 wins and he progresses and looks good, because they've got a plan, and it looks like the plan could work out really well for 2-3 years down the road. But if our expectations are here and he's here, it's going to cause a problem. Just quit making expectations so high, please. Have a wonderful Friday, Buck.
You too, buddy. Thanks for the call. I will not tolerate that, though, that we're treating this like his rookie year. He's had his rookie year. It's over now. But I get his point.
You said clean slate.
No, it doesn't completely erase everything.
That's quite literally what a clean slate means.
I don't believe you unless you read it from Urban Dictionary. Polls, quickly. Yeah. The room immediately cleared after you said that. They both just abandoned you. I'm so hungry, I'm going to pass out. Little hats. Little hats.
The way Rhett bounces around Star Wars characters.
It's ridiculous.
From Chewie to Obi-Wan to Darth Vader back to Obi-Wan. Polls are presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Who is the least talked about Titans player of the offseason? We've done discussions on the most talked about. The least talked about, Karen says, is Snead. Haven't heard much until he's on the field constantly, but we've talked a lot about L'Jarius Snead.
Plenty. We'll tell you Monday.
Yeah. Brian says Julius Chestnut. Germ says Harold Landry. A few people saying Harold Landry. Chase says Josh Wiley. We'll get into it after the weekend. What is the most intriguing quarterback storyline of the 2024 NFL season? Karen says Aaron Rodgers again, but also the development of C.J. Stroud. Thomas says Pittsburgh with Russ and Justin Fields.
We never played the audio that Lucas pulled from our buddy Emery Hunt of CBS Sports talking about Deshaun Watson. Apologies, I forgot that we had that in there. But Watson is, I would hear Watson as important or influential to the success or failure of his team as Aaron Rodgers of any team in the league. I'd hear that argument.
I agree. Do you buy that LeBron had no involvement in the hiring of JJREK? 93.5% say hell no. 6.5% say yes.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm going to go ahead and, not that I'm calling LeBron James a liar. I'm just saying that he's not totally telling the truth.
What will we be talking about on Monday? A Vols national title, Game 3 of the College World Series Finals, or full-blown BVS? 57.3% say Vols as national champs will be the discussion on Monday. 28% say we'll be previewing a Game 3, and 14.7% of the audience says full-blown BVS.
I can't believe that you sat there with a straight face and tried to argue with both of us that this team was BVS, that battered Vols syndrome proof.
I'm
the
scared.
audacity.
I feel like he might have put a curse.
If the Vols lose,
feeling pretty good.
It's not the curse of the number 1 seed. It's because Lucas said they were BVS proof. Yeah,
exactly.
Texas A&M coach Jim Schlossnagle did confirm today that Ryan Prager, the lefty, will start for A&M tomorrow.
You said that name with such confidence.
Believe that Chris Stamos will also start for Tennessee tomorrow, back to a regular weekend rotation. In what sport does the head coach have the biggest impact? Karen says in college football. Goody is going with cricket. Steve says, I'm going with football. And in descending order after that, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer. I would disagree with that order, but I think I agree football is number 1.
College football for sure. And I would argue that, well, I don't want to speak from a place of ignorance. I know how NFL coaching works. I know the level of impact, the deep level of impact that NFL coaching can have, because that's what I cover. I can't speak with that level of intimacy to the NBA, the NHL, or Major League Soccer, or baseball, for example, but I just think there's so many, that the value of individual position group and then coordinated coaching is at such a premium in the NFL for so many different moving parts at any given point on the field of play.
We end the show with Teresa Walker rightfully correcting me and saying that the Oilers are trying to force a Game 6 when they're trying to force a Game 7. I even said it in my update, and I got it wrong. Thank you, Teresa, for always holding us accountable. Oilers play tonight, hosting Florida, looking to force Game 7 back in Sunrise.
No, I think I could stand to be held less accountable by Teresa.
I disagree.
Okay, very good.
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. That is going to do it for us. Blaine Bishop is coming up next. You can get in with him for the next couple of hours. 3HL to close out your Friday. Have a tremendous weekend. The next time that you and I speak will be Sunday night on the Primetime program.